here we are at the launch for Fists Upon a Star, and as you can see, a number of community members have come out to join us for this launch. We've had wonderful book sales, and this is where all the magic begins for the media work. This is just the beginning of many plans that we have. We are going to do a number of things. We're launching it next week to the media. She's done a few preliminary media interviews, but the plan is to move national next week. And so a very important thing that happens at a book launch is we have to have some people speaking. But to begin with, we had to figure out a place to put this event. And what better place than the Globe Theatre? As Florence was an actor or actress, this was one of the places that she would be all of the time. So we thought this had to be the place. Plus, the theatre community knows her intimately.
Florence got more people into theatre who never believed they could act. She kept saying to all these people who were talkers, okay, now I want you to be in this play. And she trained so many people.
What she was doing was what people are doing in theater now. She was having us inhabit roles.
That's right.
Instead of act them.
Yeah. And everywhere she went, she saw people as artists. She really. So in that sense, she was the ahead of the popular theater.
She was,
way ahead of it.
Well, what makes it an interesting book is that there were many of us in rural Saskatchewan who benefited from Florence James through Mary Ellen Burgess. I mean, we had practically professional theater. I had in grade 10, 11, 12 adjudication by Mary Ellen Burgess, and we were, it was like the writing community. We were pushed way beyond high school. And so there are all people in, it's not a coincidence there's so many actors, film people in Saskatchewan. No, it was, I think that kind of stuff that was happening through the rural Saskatchewan with the students, people probably don't know about it. I'm dying to read the book so I can find out if it's mentioned.
So with this kind of a book, we have to do a different kind of a spin media-wise than what we would have done for Clearing the Plains. Clearing the Plains allowed for a political opportunity as we have a number of politicians examining the history of that. We tagged into the media that way. But with Fists Upon a Star, we're going to go a little bit different. One of the things that we're going to tag into is that Jean Freeman is a local celebrity as well as a national celebrity, as she had multiple appearances on Corner Gas. So one of the things we're going to sell is her notoriety across Canada. And then the other thing we'll tap into is the angle of McCarthyism within the book.
Hi, I'm Bruce Walsh, and I'm the publisher of University of Regina Press. As some of you know, we just launched the new press in June, and we've had a few books out since then, the first being Clearing the Plains, which is done, I think we're going back to our third printing on that book. So we're very hopeful for the book we have tonight, which we are all in love with, Fists Upon a Star. I wanted to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's a really exciting evening for us because, as I said, this is a book that is, I think, a personal project for so many of us at the press, both because we have fallen in love with Jean Freeman, who has really shepherded this book forward, and Rita Deverall over the last 30 years. The book has been at the press for 5 years, and so as of tonight, it's actually being launched. So it's a really exciting moment for all of us.
I came into this story fairly late compared to some of you. What happened to me is that Ken Kramer, the co-founding artistic director of the Globe Theatre, said to me in 1978, which is fairly late to come into this story, he said, record Florence's memories before she forgets everything. And I didn't know what he meant. I didn't know what memories I was supposed to be recording. I didn't know the story. And the reason I have stuck with it so long is, in fact, fairly personal, and it may be kind of obvious to you. When I found out, and it took a long time to find this out, that Florence and Burton James had operated an all-black theater company in the 1930s, so you'll find this in the book. There are wonderful photographs of the Negro Repertory Company, and being a black actor, or an actor who is black, I very much know what a difficult road this is. And to this day, most theaters are not as adventuresome as Florence and Burton James in the 1930s. What I also knew, though, is that the reason Ken and Sue Kramer could see that they could hire me in the 1970s and come to Saskatchewan and just be treated like an ordinary actor was because they had Florence James in the back room. But I didn't know any of this when Ken said, record Florence's memories before she forgets everything. So that's one thing to look for in the book. Every word is actually quite golden.
You've been to a few launches in your time.
Yeah.
What makes a good book launch?
Convivial atmosphere. If it's too serious, if the writer reads for too long, especially long, boring passages, it tends to take the edge off things, you know. I think it's important that people have a good time, a celebration about the book, and we meet the author. The author's here to sign the books, to make history kind of part of personal history too, and just generate the kind of atmosphere that the Globe Theatre has brought to this particular event.
People have been asking a lot of questions about this book and about the process of bringing it into the world. Most often, they want to know how come it took 35 years to get it published. I could say that I'm a slow writer, but in fact, if you want to find out the real reason, then read the book, because it's all in the book. The second question, and there are a lot of them, but the second question is usually, how did you get involved with this? Well, I'm very seldom at a loss for words. And I have an almost pathological inability to say no, which at least partly explains how I became involved in helping to tell the story of this remarkable woman who left big shoes to fill and incredibly sturdy shoulders to stand on. And there are a lot of us who've been standing on Florence's shoulders for a long time. For the rest of that, I recommend reading the book as well, because there's a lot more detail in there. She loved this space. She loved all of the places that Globe settled in and Globe developed into. Just as she loved any theater where there were dedicated people who were dedicated to bringing theater of the people, by the people, and for the people. Her kind of theater to people everywhere. That was the kind of thing that Florence loved, and Florence lived and died for. She didn't know how or when or what this was going to turn into, but she knew, she had confidence that it was going to develop, it was going to become the theater of the people, by the people, for the people. And she knew that somehow this was going to spread beyond the margins of this province, the city, and Canada. I mean, she had a profound influence on theater and on people everywhere. Somehow, someday, she knew this was coming. And I continued to discover, as I look at the manuscript now, I discover new things that I didn't realize were there. Because this mantra that we've had, and we've made jokes about, speak up, and she is in here tonight saying, Jean, speak up. It's not just advice for performers who have to be heard. It's life advice for all of us. Especially women, the disadvantaged, but for all of us. It's the way Florence lived and died, speaking up for what she knew was right and just. And I think of her today every time I see little Malala, and I see the things that she has accomplished because she had the courage and the guts to speak up. Malala was a Florence James kind of woman, and I think that this is a Florence James kind of time for all of us. So it's that kind of belief and that kind of story which I think deserves to go on and be remembered. And that's why launching this book, especially at Canadian Thanksgiving time, is particularly apt, particularly appropriate, because this was a woman who really gave thanks for everything Canadian, everything that she was blessed with here. But thanks also for friends and for other people on both sides of the border who did stand up and took their place with her. I thank all of those, as we have earlier tonight, for everybody who's preserved Florence's legacy, including, of course, Rita, Florence's grandchildren, whom I love dearly, and now the University of Regina Press, whom I also love dearly, for many reasons. And all of you because all of you have now been called to speak up. Speak up in your own lives for what you believe in and what's worth speaking up about. That is Florence's legacy. And I thank you for sharing it and spreading it, and I thank you all for being my friends and for being here. Thank you.